We are entering into the next session where we are discussing about the third stage in the formation of a company, and that is subscription of capital. Capital subscription we call it. That means raising of capital, because we have already seen what promotion is, what is registration, and next stage which we have to learn is about raising of capital, raising of financial resources. And what is subscription of capital? Subscription of capital is concerned with raising of required funds from public. If a company is raising the necessary financial resources from public, we come to this stage that is called as capital subscription, and it can be through issue of shares and debentures. It can be through issue of shares and debentures, and a lot of formalities have to be followed when we are going for capital subscription. We have to pass through various steps in subscribing capital from general public. That is what we are going to see in this session. Now, the first one is SEBI approval. The first step in subscription of capital is SEBI approval. SEBI is Securities Exchange Board of India, and SEBI is the apex body in our country which is controlling the transaction of securities. So, as it is the regulatory body in exchange of securities, we have to get a prior approval from SEBI before raising funds. We have to get approval before raising of funds from SEBI, because it is the topmost body, it is the regulatory body in exchange of securities in our country. And why it is said so? It is because to make sure that information disclosed are in accordance to the guidelines, and investor protection is also made sure. SEBI makes sure that all the disclosure regarding the company and its activities is being disclosed properly, and protection of investor, protection of person who is investing into the shares and debentures are also made sure through the approval from SEBI, because SEBI has given clear guidelines. After getting approval from SEBI for issuing securities, next thing is filing of prospectus. What is prospectus? Prospectus is the invitation to public to apply for shares or debentures of a company, and it is on the basis of this prospectus. It can be a notice, it can be an advertisement, it can be a circular giving detail regarding how the firm is going to work, how the company is going to work, what all things this money will be used for. All the details will be there in the prospectus. It is an invitation, and public primarily depends on this prospectus, on this document for investing into this shares or debentures. So, it is to be made sure that there must not be any misstatement in this prospectus. Correct information is to be given in the prospectus, and a copy of prospectus, a copy of this invitation which is given to public, is to be submitted to, is to be filed, or statement in lieu of prospectus. That is another document which can be adopted by a private company or a public company raising funds privately, can issue or can use a statement in lieu of prospectus. That is another document, or prospectus or statement in lieu of prospectus can be used, and it is to be filed with the registrar of companies. So, second one is filing of prospectus with registrar of companies. So, first one was SEBI approval, second one is filing of prospectus. Third one is appointment of bankers, brokers and underwriters. What bankers are doing is that bankers are receiving the application money from public. Bankers receive application money from public. That is why banker is appointed. Brokers are helping to sell shares by providing application form and encouraging general public to subscribe for shares or debentures. So, brokers or firm is being appointed in order to make sure that the people, general public, is encouraged to apply for shares. And who are underwriters? Underwriters are those persons, those group of persons or firms which undertake to subscribe the unsubscribed shares. They comes into picture when issue by a company which is not that much known to public happen, because public may not positively respond to a very new company. In such case, they have to, in order to make sure that application for a particular number of shares is there, that is made sure through underwriters, because underwriters undertake to subscribe the unsubscribed shares. So the third step is appointment of bankers, brokers and underwriters. Each one performs each duties. Now there comes as a fourth step, minimum subscription. Minimum subscription means a company must receive application for a certain minimum number of shares before allotment of shares. Before allotting, there must be at least minimum number of application received for purchase of shares. Only if company is receiving that much of applications, that minimum number of applications, it can allot the shares. That minimum number of shares to be applied for, that is called as minimum subscription according to companies. And minimum subscription is kept as a criteria to make sure that company is not starting with inadequate resources. It is preventing company starting with inadequate resources. It is starting with enough resources to make sure that it is company start with enough resources. So in order to avoid company starting with inadequate resources, minimum subscription is kept as a criteria. And again, underwriters up to a level help in subscribing to this level of minimum subscription. As of now, 90% of the total issue is considered as minimum subscription. Coming on to the fifth step, application to stock exchange. Application to stock exchange, because company is raising funds through securities, shares or debentures. So initial issue can be made by company, further issues will happen only through stock exchange. In class 12 you will be learning more about that. So initial issue directly company can deal, but further buying and selling can happen only in stock exchange. So company has to make application at least to one stock exchange. At least to one stock exchange application must be given in order to deal with shares and debentures of it. And if application is not received or the permission is not granted before expiry of 10 weeks from the date of closure of subscription list, there is a last date for applying for shares, and from that date 10 weeks, within 10 weeks, if permission from stock exchange is not coming, is not being granted, then allotment becomes void. Allotment will become of no effect. Allotment cannot be done, and money has to be given back to the persons who have given within 8 weeks. Within 8 weeks, application money has to be given back. 8 weeks it has to be given back to the applicants. Those who have applied for it must be given back. If permission is not granted within 10 weeks from the date of closure of subscription, stock exchange application has to be made. And the last step is, if all these things are completed, the last step is allotment of shares. Allotment of shares, if it is made, allotment letter has to be given to successful allottees, those who are given shares, but there is a chance that they may not get the exact number which they have applied for. That means they have applied for 10, they got only 8. Then the firm has to give back the amount for 2 shares back to the applicant, or it can be adjusted if there is some pending payment for the shares. Otherwise, it has to be given back. So, in case of number of shares allotted is less than number applied for, excess money has to be returned to the applicants or adjusted to the unpaid amount of the purchase. And return of applicant means the detail of applicants, number of shares and their details has to be submitted within 30 days of allotment to Registrar of Companies. And with this, the procedure or the stage of capital subscription is completed.